Hello everyone and welcome to another episode of Xaereth Prevails, a Grand Arena story. Alright, we're in the middle of 5v5 right now. We're in episode 5, so we're in the semifinals, and it's a good one. But first, I wanted to give a huge shout out to all of my patrons. You guys are really awesome. Love you guys. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. Today I'm facing a dude named Skywalker24, which I have no idea what 24 means. Maybe that's the number of younglings he found in the Jedi Temple that night. Or maybe it's how many things he had to drink before he went and confronted the Sith. I'm really not sure. I do know that they had a pretty good record going into this match, and they had a fully reliced, really strong General Skywalker, and I was actually pretty sure I wasn't actually going to see that squad, but more on that in a little bit. So looking at the stats, you can see that we have pretty close to even relics, and I'm not sure I really like that. I kind of prefer to have the disadvantage in relics because that means that I have the advantage in other parts of the match. Which, as it turns out, I did have a slight advantage in, most of these categories. Zetas, I had a tiny bit more. I had more Gear 13s by a small amount. Mods are probably the biggest factor here. I did have more of the lower end mods, but my opponent has, pretty close to even mods as me as well. In terms of overall success in Grand Arena, I did outmatch my opponent by a little bit, though it's hard to really draw any conclusions off of that. They are, I will say, a more talented offensive player than I am, just because they've taken out more teams than I have overall in Grand Arena. Just by one, but that's still a pretty big amount because mostly I take out all the teams that I face. So, looking at the Grand Arena history, I noticed that all of these teams were the exact same as the last round were, and that does kind of build confidence. It also increases my suspicion that maybe they're trying to mess around in the back zones. So I guess we'll see if that's actually what happens here. Now, moving into this match, I was pretty sure that my opponent was going to be taking General Skywalker and Darth Revan both on offense, as well as like Padme and Commander Luke and Traya, basically all of their meta teams. And so that left an interesting situation where, I probably wasn't going to be facing some, really heinous, tough teams in the back zones. And, I could choose to take out the Night Sisters with troopers, but there's always that level of uncertainty in that. Or I could take out these really fast bounty hunters, which in the long run, like getting a 60 banner boost with troopers and having it guaranteed is pretty good, especially against bounty hunters, because bounty hunters, if you don't have the right team for them, it's going to be a really uphill battle for you, just because, you'll win probably, but they're going to take some banners off of you. And Bounty Hunters is great. You get a quick, easy 60. You don't have to worry about the Bounty Hunters, and you can move forward. Now, with Night Sisters, there's always that element of like, well, if they revive at the wrong time, or if Talzin gets a really crazy hit on like Veers or something with her AoE, like I could just lose right away, and then I just waste my entire team. And so I did decide to err on the side of caution there with my bounty hunters, and I felt pretty confident that my opponent was going to have the same team in their back zone. After looking at all of their histories, it just seemed, and especially looking at their Grand Arena like stats at the start, their focus is on offense. They want to have a high-powered offense. This was going to be an efficiency match, and so I decided I would just take Padme team here against these Night Sisters. Usually I like to save my Padme for later, because she counters almost everything. But in this case, I felt pretty confident because this was probably going to be the second toughest team that I was going to face today. You saw that while I was choosing teams for a little bit, I was trying to decide if I wanted to take Aayla Secura or not, and I ended up not doing that. The reason I would take Aayla there, the only reason, because Shakti and Ahsoka are way better than her in the context of this squad. The only reason is that I'm trying to get the stun feat. I'm trying to get 100 stuns, and at this point I need 43 total stuns in this round, which seems pretty doable, but you just never know. I ended up deciding, like, I didn't want Ayla to end up being a huge, liability to me. All of these characters that I have right here are reasonably high relic, and these Night Sisters weren't going to pose much of a threat to my Padme team, frankly. But, if the Spirit got a good hit and Talzin followed it up with another strong hit, the possibility existed that Ayla was going to get, taken out. And I just didn't want to waste banners because, as I've mentioned before, I was convinced that this was going to be an efficiency match, not a, slugfest trying to take out like a ton of really heavy defensive teams. So, as many banners as possible is going to be good. And if that ended up costing me the feat, then I guess that's how these things go sometimes. But you always want to, if you have a choice between getting a feat and getting a win, like you always choose the win. There's no question about that. That feat's only like 50 total banners. So anyways, I did manage to take this team out relatively easy. 56 banners, just be glad it's not 55, I guess. Padme, you just have to live with that result, frankly. So the back zone mirrored exactly what my opponent had been taking the last few Grand Arenas, and I felt pretty confident moving into here that I wasn't going to be seeing any nonsense in their other back zone. Now, I don't really know what phenomenon started all of this Old Republic madness. Like, I went for a really long time in my other Grand Arena matches in 5v5 without seeing Old Republic. And it's like, once we started 5v5 again, and, 3v3 like got us in the habit of using Old Republic again or something. And, now we're just seeing Old Republic everywhere, and that's great because all these feats are using a bunch of characters that I'm not really that used to using. And my Palpatine team though is wonderful to try to get stuns here, and so we're just trying to rack up as many stuns as we can in this match. I was pretty confident going in that I was going to be able to beat this team. It wasn't the best modded. Like Zalbar wasn't modded for tenacity, and like a couple of them, I think it was Karth, maybe he was modded for like, I think he had like plus 23 speed or something. Like it was like a neglected, poor, sad squad. I felt a little bit bad for them, like a tiny bit. Not at all, actually. I tried to feel bad though, kind of. And so a lot of the moves here I'm going to be making are not necessarily optimized for just winning the match and getting high banners. I'm trying to get high banners, of course. We want to get that, but I also really want to get the feat. And so we're trying to stun as many people as we can. We're trying to keep them alive as long as we can, so that Emperor Palpatine can just do his group stun over and over again, and just get the feat here. Juhani was frustrating because she dispelled everyone, and luckily Palpatine could go again and stun everyone again, so that's another 3. And I'm not going to do a big countdown because I frankly don't care to do that. But now we're just trying to, we killed Karth incidentally, and that's fine. One important principle to using this squad against an Old Republic squad, though, is trying to get shock on Zalbar. Just because Zalbar isn't going to get rid of shock very easily. I think Juhani is the only one who can dispel it, and so Zalbar is just going to hang out with shock, and then shock means that you can't gain new buffs, and that means that he can't passively taunt, and that's really kind of his thing. Like, if he can't passively taunt, then he's about as worthless as the rebels thought Chewie was in the medal ceremony, which is hilarious because, hey, they're both Wookiees. Now we're just, I'm just biding my time, frankly. Like, I think that I would have done probably a lot different here. I would have tried to take Canderous out way earlier than this. We don't want to risk him getting back up and, hitting all of us with his AoE or anything. But we wanted to keep. I wanted to keep him around for as long as I could until you saw Thrawn go, and he hit Canderous with his basic, and Canderous already had ability block, which means that I still stunned Canderous even though he was stunned again. Like, that still counts. And then he was so low health, I decided I may as well just finish him off because there wasn't going to be a possibility of stunning him later. And now I'm trying to keep an eye on my clock as well. Like, I'm not doing too much damage against Zalbar. Like, we got to be careful not to time out. So, you know, we want to make sure that I'm maximizing all of my stuns and everything for the feat. That's important, but we also, like I said before, like we would be crazy to try to, win the feat, or get the feat and then end up losing the whole match because we were just hanging out and not paying attention. So there was one other reason that I wanted to keep this match going as long as I could, and that is Thrawn has the ability to increase, or rather heal, protection, and so I wanted to make sure that I was going to get as many banners as I could here. I felt pretty confident that I was probably going to get in the high 50s, but if I could get 60, that would be great. And frankly, like I was just running out of the health pool here. They weren't healing, they weren't doing anything, and so eventually I just had to accept the truth that I wasn't going to get another heal off. And that was okay. One of the reasons I don't like Palpatine on offense as much, it's not because he doesn't win. He wins quite a bit against the right teams. He just doesn't get max banners very often. I know people are like, oh, I always get a ton of banners with Palpatine, and that's great in your world where you fight Phoenix and Rogue One all day, and it's just not my reality. A lot of the teams I have to face will probably bite Emperor Palpatine's face off, banners wise. You saw back there that I was up to 99 total stuns, so all I needed to do was one more stun here, and I'd be good to go. One of the things that is interesting in this match is my opponent had a 3-star Gear 12 Hux with his Zeta, and that Zeta is really important because it means that I can't gain bonus turn meter while he's still alive, or at least while he has advantage, something like that. And so I needed something to be able to take him out. I decided that I was going to take Jedi Knight Revan here instead of Commander Luke. Commander Luke would have been just great, could have just killed Hux right off the bat with Han's pistol, shoots first ability, whatever it's called. But in the end, I decided if my opponent did have General Skywalker in the back, that I had nothing that could counter him at this point other than Commander Luke. So he was probably going to be more valuable to me in terms of that. And I did undersize it, and I took Bastila lead here. Bastila lead is great if you want to, if you're overmatching your opponent. If your team is way better than your opponent's is, and you want to make sure you're getting max banners, you take Bastila because, she's maybe not as strong of a leader as Jedi Revan is, but she gives them a huge pool of bonus protection that they never lose. And if your opponents can't chew through that bonus protection, then you're just going to get max banners without having to worry about, maximizing all of your assists and everything at the end, trying to top off those protection pools. Because, how often does it happen where you're like, oh man, I'm destroying this team, and they're running out of hit points, and now I've killed all of them, and I couldn't get enough assists in time, and now I'm just, screwed, and now I have 57 banners against this inferior team that got one AoE off. With Bastila, you just don't have to worry about that. So you see, that purple bar above above my health. I'm sure everyone watching this knows what that is. It's my bonus protection. They haven't come close to chewing through it. And, this First Order team, Kylo Ren, is tough to chew through a little bit. But at the end of the day, I had a high enough offense that I could do it. So 61 banners here. Good to recoup a little bit of those losses against Emperor Palpatine, I guess, or rather, my use of Emperor Palpatine. And we can see what's in the back zone. And as exactly expected, my opponent's team was exactly the same as in the past. I did get a stun in that last match. I got a few of them actually, and so I did get the stun feat, which is wonderful. I also got the tactical advance feat, which is kind of a foregone conclusion. If I'm going to be full clearing, I'm going to get that, but I guess it's still cool to get. I don't know. All right, so now it's all about using the right teams for the right jobs. This Droids team was actually, this Grievous team was really strong. I had a lot of relics on it, maxed out Grievous, everything. And I didn't, initially I was just like, I don't want to try to take this with Jedi Revan. I was pretty sure I could, but I just wasn't sure. So the goal here, I'm trying to be real careful. I don't want to get to kill any of the droids. I want to get someone under half health, and so that's what happened here. Got Magna Guard under half health, which through Darth Revan's lead immediately put Deathmark on General Grievous. I was able to hit Grievous before he got a turn, and after Grievous is dead, then the whole team just goes away. And so now we're just trying to, maximize banners, trying to regrow as much as we can. Not all of my characters can regrow them. I think HK and Marauder are just sorry out of luck, but Darth Revan and Bastila can regrow their protection. Everyone's feared, everyone's shocked. Like it's a foregone conclusion we're gonna win. It's a dangerous fight though, honestly. Like if you let things get out of control, Grievous can just mow this entire team down, and you have to win with maybe Malak, or maybe you have to clean it up. So getting 57 banners there, though, that's been my experience more often than not. You just have to be real intentional about which attacks you're using and about which attacks you, are going to use against different characters, so you don't kill them. Ironically, it's actually better against high-end droids because they don't die as easily, and you can get them past that 50% mark easier without killing them. Now, this team was a little bit interesting. I was trying to snipe Watt there, and it didn't work because he's high relics, and now he's got the taunting tech onto L3. So for a minute there, I was a little bit worried. One thing that I will note is if you're taking a Commander Luke team against Nute, it can win, absolutely. It can usually win. But if it has Jango, which is a pretty common occurrence on these teams, people take Jango here. You do not want to take C-3PO with you. That's a huge, really big mistake, honestly, because 3PO, you'll eventually kill this entire team, and that's great. You want to kill him, but if you kill him too fast, Jango will still have his damage immunity up, and you reduce turn meter with so many different attacks, especially with 3PO in the fold, that you can actually just time out trying to kill Jango, and he'll build up like 200 exposes, and you'll eventually just lose because you can't kill him, and he can't take a turn. So, there was no Jango here to worry about, of course, so I felt pretty safe taking 3PO with me. I did want to undersize this as much as I could as well, because Old Ben was just going to weigh me down banners-wise. And it turned out pretty well. 60 banners there is wonderful. If I'd taken Old Ben, probably more like 58 banners. So, just trying to maximize your banners is, it's obviously a pretty important skill. But, one thing that I've learned with Commander Luke is, you don't want to go too small if something's threatening. I needed a little extra damage there, in my opinion. But at the same time, it was... it felt pretty safe. Now, the next team up is, I wanted to take Treya. This Kira team is interesting, I think is the most polite word to use. It has Lando, old school Lando on it, which is fascinating. The only tank is Stormtrooper Han, and, it's a pretty weak Stormtrooper Han at that. I don't mean to be disparaging to my opponent. Well, actually, that's exactly what I mean. Like, I feel extremely disparaging here. This team is... Honestly, it's just not well constructed. Like, there's a lot of elements that I like, but... I don't like Lando here at all. He just doesn't do much. If he's not in the lead slot, which you don't have much reason to put him in the lead slot these days, but he just doesn't offer much. He has his AoE that doesn't do much damage, and that's it. He has some random scoundrel synergies that he can kind of benefit from, but pretty much any other scoundrel is going to benefit more. The only tank here is Stormtrooper Han, and he's a great tank at higher levels. This is only a Gear 11 Stormtrooper Han, though, and not only is he low relics, he's also the only taunting tank here, and I put Isolate on him right away, which is great. That's wonderful. That's what you're supposed to do. But like he can't even if I didn't have isolate, he can only taunt once, and then once I dispel it, then he can't taunt for basically the rest of the match. So one thing that I will note here as well, I wanted to point out is Scion has been saving his ultimate ability, or whatever it is, his huge, he wants to get buff ability. And the reason for that is I want to be able to cycle that at the right time toward the end of the match. See, I used it finally, and then I used his special to be able to hit, and it also regenerated some of his protection and, got him above that mark. So, that's a move that you want to use at the very end just to get one more banner if you can possibly do it. And so, 59 banners there is just fine, honestly. And now we have a really interesting match here. This bounty hunter team with Zam lead is actually really interesting because every time one of the bounty hunters uses one of his specials under Zam, it applies a thermal detonator. And once you apply 20 thermal detonators, then the team does any attacks and causes thermal detonators, and it can get dangerous real quick. It's a really great way to burn banners, and so my goal here was just to prevent them from ever taking a turn with First Order. I did outspeed them, which is great. Had Kylo Ren do his AoE so that it fed turn meter. I could get a stun off on Zam, which is the most important one to get it off on, and then after that, you just let the natural turn meter abilities on all these guys keep cycling. And at the end there, Fox got a bunch of kills, which is a lot of fun. But this team never took a turn. If it was a little faster or more resilient, this would have been a huge pain. The other reason I took First Order here was, frankly, because if things went really poorly, at least the 2 Kylos would probably be able to be just fine. Honestly, I was curious to know if my 2 Kylos could just run the board on their own. They're immune basically to thermal detonators, but I decided against that. I wanted to take the full team just so I could get as much turn meter as I could, and if I could, just run the table. And that's what I did. 60 banners was just fine, and I ended up with a score of 1911, which is a pretty good score. Anything above 1910, in my opinion, is a really great threat to be able to win. And my opponent actually surprised me by attacking that same evening a few hours later, and here are the results. As expected, with so many good teams on offense, my opponent did full clear me with all 1 hits, but I did end up winning by 8 banners, which is, like one pretty catastrophic attack away from, losing. And you have to think that General Skywalker mirror probably ended up costing him like 6 or 7 or 8 banners. So, that's the margin that I was operating in. So I really needed to make sure that I maximized my banners, which I feel like it actually did an okay job of that. So looking at my defenses here, there's really nothing too new. Pretty much the same. I think I mixed them up a little bit from last time, but like I said, they all got 1 shot. I'll be interested to see what things my opponent used to counter all my teams. They were pretty efficient, but in the end, they dropped 17. I only dropped 9, and I won the efficiency match. So, I'm at 5-0 right now, and that's a great feeling. I'm at one point I was at rank 7. I think I fell to the 20s or so. Or at least close to the 20s by the time the entire round was finished. But right now I'm actually back to rank number 7 after doing all of my feats and everything, deploying my defenses for my final round, and it's just a cool thing. Let's see if I can keep it going. I know that it's not too likely, but we'll see. With every match I win, I get a little bit closer, and the end goal really is trying to get into Kyber, and I've gotten a great start to that. If I can win my next round, then that's great, because you need to go 10-2 to get into Kyber, and that means you have to win 2 of your matches at least, or rather 2 of your groups. And if I can win on my next match tomorrow, then that's great, because I've won the 2 groups that I need, and then I can just kind of shuffle into Kyber if I need to. Though, of course, the other goal is to go undefeated and get as high ranking as I can. So anyways, guys, you've heard enough of me rambling. Thank you guys so much for watching, and remember that in all things, Xaereth prevails.